Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. I am Adam Weinrib, joined as always by Fansided's MLB Insider Robert Murray. And opening day is, oh, by the way, in 3 days. Yes, for the technicality heads in the audience, the season already opened. The Cubs and Dodgers already played. The Cubs have been in last place for a week. But opening day, where the curtain is up on all 30 teams officially, is just over 72 hours from now. Just under, actually, 3 o'clock Eastern. How about that? And there are some final roster adjustments that will take place. Some extensions that have recently been taken care of. Potentially even some extensions still around the corner. To help me break it all down for you and answer your questions, thank you for joining us, is Fansided's MLB Insider Robert Murray. Robert, I can't say we made it yet because we didn't make it. We still have 3 days to go, but we are so close to making it. We'll do our predictions on Wednesday's show, and for now, it's roster shuffle time.
No, that it is. It's good to be here to break it all down with you, Adam. We made it through the weekend, which is always a good thing. I was reminded that the Eagles won the Super Bowl, which how could you forget about that? But
we did.
There was a pretty busy weekend. I chilled, and all of a sudden, then I found out Alejandro Kirk was getting extended and broke that over the weekend. And there was a bunch of other stuff that I heard as well that I'm anxious to break it all down with you. Currently got Cooper licking my foot right now, so good job, Cooper. Good to be here with you, Adam. How we doing? How was your weekend?
We were doing good. The weekend was good. I was in Providence, Rhode Island for St. John's, embarrassingly losing to Arkansas and John Calipari. But it's a great city. If you've never been, everyone should go. Got a great scene cropping up on the west side, too. Good restaurants, good breweries. I got an ice cream sandwich at a specialized ice cream sandwich store. I had an incredible weekend. Not as good a weekend as Alejandro Kirk. I didn't get paid $50+ million. But still, not bad. I enjoyed my time. What is Ryan Yarborough's role in the Bronx from Justin? Kicking ass and taking names. We'll move on to the other questions from this point forward. If you want to ask us more questions, join us in the Discord, where you can get a private Q&A with Robert in the Rumor Mill channel once a week. Am I really getting spring training score updates in the comments? It appears that I am. Well, that's okay. Damn. A blown save for the Yankees in a game that does not count. Really appreciate that. Beyond that, join us in the Discord. Join us on the audio feed, the Baseball Insiders feed. That's where you can get this podcast. If you're not joining us on the live stream, also recommend, if you're not subscribed to the Moonshot, you should be. That's our weekly baseball email newsletter where the Fansided MLB team, including Robert Murray, will break down all the biggest stories in the big leagues with humor, insight, and behind-the-scenes info. You can also read that on the Baseball Insiders feed on fansided.com. That's fansided.com/baseball-insiders. That's where you get the latest rumors and notes from Robert Murray, humor and insight from yours truly, and the best of baseball and pop culture from the Fansided MLB staff writers. So check that out. Okay, let's start with Kirk because probably not the only extension of the weekend, but probably the biggest one. 5-year deal, a nice bargain in my opinion for an underrated player. Did you see this one coming? And hopefully because you broke it. And is this one maybe just an appetizer for Jays fans, who I know are a little jumpy now when they see breaking and my team?
I'll be honest, usually I have a pretty good idea of the stories that I'm going to break. I had no idea this one was coming. This was one where it kind of it came out of the blue in my eyes, but it made perfect sense for the Blue Jays. And this was not the extension that Blue Jays fans thought was coming. I think everyone has been thinking that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. could end up being that guy, but it turns out to be Kirk, and they got him for 5 years for $58 million. He was going to be a free agent at the end of the year, so he will become a free agent after his age 31 season. Overall, it was a very strong contract for Kirk. I usually, after you see extensions, you have other agents reach out and be like, what the hell are those guys doing with that deal? This one, I heard universal praise for it. It was a really good value for Kirk. Was a strong contract for him. And it keeps a very important part of that foundation in Toronto in place long term. And the Blue Jays view Kirk as a guy who is his best baseball is going to be ahead of him. And they think this year we could really end up seeing that jump from him. And as far as what this means for a guy like Vlad Jr., I don't necessarily know. But to me, in my eyes, this can only help because there was so much long-term uncertainty with the Blue Jays, and Vlad is one of those guys, but also Kirk was one of those guys as well. You have Kirk in place. It seemed like, based on those comments or based on all the reports, the Blue Jays and Vlad Jr. weren't that far apart. It was just like the present day value and all the deferred money. I guess that is kind of a pretty big gap. But now that I'm thinking
They only have to make up a gap of a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty sizable gap. So let me rephrase that one. But I think that would only help entice him to re-sign in Toronto. But that being said, I mean, you're this far away from free agency. You're a year away, and you just saw Juan Soto cash in for $765 million. I'm still of the thinking and of the belief that at this point he should wait and try to let the market establish his value. But I don't think Toronto should be counted out of those sweepstakes at all. I know how I'm thinking now that I'd be surprised if we see an extension before opening day. But the optimism and the recent optimism from the Blue Jays front office and those guys there, it's got me wondering exactly like what do they know or what are they up to right now?
Yeah, and when they were that optimistic, were they referring to Alejandro Kirk? They were like, "Oh, sorry, we're definitely going to sign Kirk. We forgot about Vlad Jr." Off to a nice start. We know Blue Jays fans are going to have their eyes open to see if anything else can get done, but this is a pretty nice way to solidify your future. Also, in probably the most classic Cleveland Guardians move of all time, Tanner Bibee has been extended by Cleveland as well. Low risk, buys out 1 year of free agency, and Cleveland loves his upside, I am sure. I see no harm in paying a high upside. I don't think we've seen the best of Tanner Bibee, and even if we have, I think this is fair value for the right-hander. So I'm not sure how anybody I'm not going to talking head debate on this. I don't really see how anybody could disagree with this one, but another smart move for a team that just has pitching infrastructure for days.
Yeah, the one thing the Guardians have been really good at is developing pitching, and Bibee has been one of those guys recently. And we saw it last year. He really came on strong. I think his ERA was around like 3.5, a little under that, 3.47, I believe it was. He's 26 years old, and this deal, it bought out the rest of his arbitration years and then also one free agent year. So it's not like they extended him super long term, but they just avoided the arbitration process in general and got 1 year of extra control on his contract. And it was a really smart move. And the terms of it, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know like if he performs the way that they think he will, this is going to end up proving out to be a pretty good steal for the Guardians. So I was not surprised at all that they ended up doing it, because if they waited, they were probably looking at another like a situation where they'd have to trade one of their guys before giving him that big payday, kind of like what happened with Lindor. I mean, even a guy like Trevor Bauer traded Mike Clevenger, and Clevenger was well on his way to a big contract before all of his injuries. So, I mean, the Guardians, they'll very rarely will give out the biggest contract, but in this case, they got value here. They got ahead of it early, and I'm surprised more teams don't do it, but it was a smart move by Cleveland.
Yeah, it's another $48 million in guaranteed money, but it comes with there's a $2 million signing bonus, just $3 million this year. It obviously escalates from there, but it's, the significantly backloaded with club options club option for 2030, small buyout, 21 mil for 2029. If he's the guy they think he'll be, this value is totally fine, and they've gotten ahead of it. Yeah. Appreciate all of your questions regarding potential future extensions. Here is the part of the show where we talk about the last second roster shuffling. And yes, I saw the Ryan Yarbrough comment, and I jokingly referred to it, but that's the dominoes are falling, right? The Yankees set their bullpen yesterday, and I think every Yankee fan was like, "Oh, that's a pretty weird group. It feels like we might get some sort of veteran, option in addition to Yordani De Los Santos and the people that they're working with." Lo and behold, there's Yarbrough. We've seen veteran names available. Mark Canha has moved from the Brewers to KC. That was a tough decision that you hinted at a couple of shows ago. Dom Smith, we predicted on the last show, would opt out, and then basically right after we got off the podcast, he did on Wednesday. Matt Moore and Adam Ottavino. Moore, I think, goes down to AAA with the Red Sox, but Adam Ottavino floating around. Any idea who else might be moving on ahead of the final roster deadlines, or maybe potentially any landing spots for the players who have recently become available? Brandon Drury and his thumb fracture. I mean, there's a lot of veterans floating around these days.
Yeah, with the Yankees looking for a bat, I thought Drury could make some sense, but with that thumb injury, it kind of complicates that need there. But it seems like They've been looking for a right-handed bat. I believe Joel Sherman of the New York Post was the one who reported that, which is indeed accurate. Which I don't know exactly who the Yankees are going to go out and get at this point. Because there's just like a big kind of a question mark there as to who's all available. And but as what Joel reported was spot on there. I was not surprised whatsoever that Dom Smith ended up opting out of his contract. Like that kind of seemed like a foregone conclusion as we ended up talking about in the last podcast. And two of the teams that I think make the most sense for Dom would end up being the Chicago White Sox, because they're pretty right-handed heavy. And then I also think the Pittsburgh Pirates with the amount of questions that they have at first base. And it seemed like DJ Stewart was going to end up being the guy there. And then now there's reports today that he's probably not going to be on the roster, which that's kind of a twist and turn. But we don't know exactly when Spencer Horwitz is going to return. So I think Dom Smith or even like on a minor league contract would make a lot of sense for Pittsburgh. Maybe a major league kind of contract situation there for him with the White Sox. So we'll see how that ultimately plays out. But those are the two teams that make the most sense in my eyes. But there's going to be a bunch of different conversations that are going to be going on over the next 72 hours. And as far as it goes with roster shuffling, as far as it goes with possible extensions, one that I do think makes plenty of sense here as far as a possible extension goes would be Kyle Schwarber with the Phillies. There had been reports about that earlier in the offseason, about him possibly being an extension candidate. I believe maybe it came during spring training. He said he was open to it. And, so we'll see ultimately what ends up happening there. But the Phillies, their core is very clearly built around Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, and some of those other guys. And Schwarber is absolutely part of that as well. So I think a Schwarber trade, or not trade, but Schwarber extension makes plenty of sense for Philadelphia, and maybe it happens before opening day. We'll see.
I would like to see Dave Dombrowski get to work this year. I say this every year, obviously, and I don't think there's anybody better at somehow managing to overhaul the farm and staying in contention at the same time and somehow always having enough assets to make significant plays. Extending Schwarber would be a nice moment for a city that maybe the team that they love is starting to grow a little bit stale entering this season. And the rotation, to me, is concerning, especially without Suarez. The back end, you have Taijuan Walker, who's a guy that I think every Phillies fan was looking to cut bait on in any way possible. And now all of a sudden, kind of like Marcus Stroman in New York, has become essential, has gotten a spot, and there's nothing for them to do about it. They're going to have to. They're making last-minute waiver claims to try to fill in the bullpen. So I think a Schwarber extension makes all the sense in the world. I think a big deadline play for a starter who could really make a difference makes all the sense in the world for that team, as long as they're able to stay in contention up to that point. But I think Philadelphia needs a little bit of positive momentum. I think a Schwarber extension would help that narrative change.
No, I totally agree. And we saw what ended up happening with Schwarber when he went to the leadoff spot. He unleashed. He was a tone setter to start the games. You look at Schwarber, you realize he's not going to be stealing any bases for you. But as far as starting the game off with a homer or as getting on base, I'm a huge fan of Kyle Schwarber, and extending him and keeping him part of that locker room where he's viewed as an instrumental part. He's still there with his guy Kevin Long, who unleashed him with the Nationals. That fit to me just makes all the sense, and that's why I'm pushing for the Phillies to go out and do that, because I think if you go out and extend Schwarber, that's going to be some really good juju for that locker room going into the season. And if you can go in knowing that you have Harper signed long-term, Turner signed long-term, Schwarber signed long-term, like all those guys, I think you're going to be entering the season in a really good spot. And Dombrowski, he's good at spending money. He's good at spending it wisely. And I think you could make the argument that spending on Schwarber and giving him a significant multi-year contract is a really smart use of resources.
I would agree. I would make that argument. I think this podcast stands behind Kyle Schwarber and stands behind unorthodox leadoff hitters in general. Give me bulky dudes taking walks and crushing homers to start the game. Don't give me your speediest guy who never gets on base. Although if you have a speedy guy who gets on base, it sounds like a pretty good baseball player. You should probably play him.
Absolutely. Okay, this is totally me going totally off track here. But if Billy Hamilton was able to get on base consistently, he would have been such a fun ball player. He would have stolen like just so many different bases. And I mean, obviously now with that Rays prospect that's coming up now, like people are thinking he might be like a much better version of Billy Hamilton. So we'll see. But I've always wondered like what if Billy Hamilton could hit? And, well, he couldn't hit, and that's why I didn't really pan out.
Yeah, it's sad for Billy. We'll always be left wondering, what if a guy who proved that he could not hit could hit? We love that. So
yeah, that might be the most ridiculous hypothetical I've ever said on this podcast.
Yeah, what if I could hit? I don't know. We might have been looking at a different. Probably wouldn't be hosting a podcast today.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
as a shitty right fielder. Yeah. Hey, I see your questions. We're gonna get to a couple, and obviously a lot of Red Sox centric questions. But I would be remiss if I didn't linger on the Yankees questions just for a little bit, because you mentioned Joel Sherman in that reporting is making it so clear that the Yankees are trying to get a right-handed bat before the season starts. They've even Pablo Reyes. We've got Pablo Reyes comments. There was a time about a week and a half ago, and I was like, I think he's going to be in that final bench spot, behind Oswald Peraza. And this weekend, Yankees people told us he leapfrogged Oswald Peraza. Like, he's making the team, and we think Peraza might be out of town, might be DFA'd. If we can find a last-minute trade partner, that's going to happen in New York. Maybe the Yankees should tank, though, considering a guy I've never heard of just gave up a 3-run game-tying home run to Brandon Nimmo, as the comments have let us know. But if they do intend to contend, they're going to try to add another right-handed bat and maybe move off Peraza. But as you brought up, without Drury healthy, who the hell is even available in this? Is there any indication of who they might be pursuing? Is there any indication that it'll even happen before this deadline of opening day?
I mean, considering how persistent the Yankees have been in looking for a right-handed bat, like you would think there's at least a fair chance of it happening. But I mean, the options are so slim at this point. Like, what could you go out and realistically do here? And to me, I don't have a good answer for you. And like, this is, I have one speculative option. You might yell at me, Adam. You might think, Robert, you're off your rocker, especially
probably not
this Billy Hamilton thing. But he's entering the last year of his contract. He's got familiarity with the Yankees organization. He's making a fair amount of money this year, and the Yankees are reportedly broke.
Yeah.
How about Isaiah Kiner-Falefa?
I did laugh.
Yeah, I told you that you might laugh. I mean, again, that's just my own speculation, but like, you'd think the Pirates would be willing to shed some salary. And if they're able to move some of that salary and maybe have some resources available for the trade deadline, or just even to add somebody now, I don't know who that person would be now, considering the options are so slim. I don't know. That was just my own personal speculation. I want to make this clear. I have not had anybody bring that to my attention. Not a soul. No one speculated it to me. No one's been like, hey, this is happening. These are talks. Genuinely my own thoughts that popped into my head during this podcast. So I don't want any aggregators to go out there and get that one. But I mean, other than that, I cannot think of a soul who would be a good fit there.
Yeah, they are broke, and the Yankee fan brain wheels are just a bunch of hamsters rolling around in there these past couple of days. You get a guy like Mitch Haniger hitting the open market, and so you're immediately like, oh, I mean, Mitch Haniger? And then you look at the salary, think about that salary doubling due to the tax, and then just rule it out immediately. So I guess a guy like IKF, a good teammate, someone they're familiar with, they're willing to eat a little bit of money. I totally get the notion, especially given how strapped and empty the rest of the market is. But yeah, as of now, I can't. Oh, it was Joel Sherman was like, Santiago Espinal could make sense, but he's too rich for the Yankees' blood. It's like, all right, well then everybody is. So why are we even speculating about this? The header image on the article is Trace Thompson. Like, the Red Sox are going to give the Yankees Trace Thompson. Be nice, but I don't see that happening. We're going to get to the questions and empty Robert's notebook. I appreciate all of your questions. Let's start with a bunch of Red Sox thoughts just tied up in one, because when we were talking about extensions, people were wondering about Christian Campbell. And I do think it's worth talking about Garrett Crochet, who news dropped Friday that unlikely that the Red Sox and Crochet come to an extension before opening day. Hey, I still think it's worth getting Garrett Crochet on your team, regardless of whether it's 2 years, 4 years, what have you. Yeah. But, I mean, that is a guy who knows his value. That is a guy who knows what a full season on a potential first place team in the AL East and beyond is good for his value. So I guess my question with regard to that is is this just one more bit of posturing where we're getting like, oh, an extension's unlikely, just so that everybody digs their heels in, and then just before opening day we get one, like a Devers deal a couple years ago, and when everybody thought Alex Cora was going to leave, and then all of a sudden there was an extension there? Or is this Crochet just knowing his worth and almost ruling it out ahead of time? Because the comments saying, this could be 35-40 million a year. It could be, and it could be for a very long term at this point.
Yeah, I don't think it's posturing at all. I think it's genuine that like there was a pretty big gap entering the weekend in Crochet extension talks, and it's always possible that that bridge can be mended here and that they can end up coming to a deal before opening day. But for them to do so, that would mean significant work would have to be done to get to that point. I don't see that necessarily happening. And in my eyes, if I'm running the Red Sox, I would view that as a mistake. I would go out and extend Crochet now because they are incredibly optimistic about what they have there. And if he's as good as he was last year and can do that for an entire season, the price tag on him is going to go up astronomical numbers here. And extending him, if I was a Red Sox, would be the top priority. Getting him signed would be really smart. It would ensure that you have your ace signed long term. And then who else is rounding out that rotation behind him, like, remains to be seen. I still think Walker Buehler was a great upside play by the Red Sox as well. Like, I mean, he's not an extension candidate by any means right now. But the potential for those two guys there, in addition to their other players, it's a really good looking front end of the rotation. So I would have extended Crochet. I would have made that a priority. But unless something really changes here, I don't expect that to happen.
Good insight there for sure. Appreciate the questions. Seeing one final one here about an Everson Pereira for Tony Gonsolin trade package from Justin. Is there any truth to these rumors? I got to admit, I have not seen even this trade package floated, so I can't even tell you where these rumors came from or if it's just a Bleacher Report package. But I mean, from my perspective, I think the Yankees need a sure thing, and that's why they got Yarborough. I don't think they need someone who they don't know what you're getting on a daily basis. Like Gonsolin, the upside is there, but what's the baseline? And then Pereira is a part of their solution. They need a guy who can take DH reps and outfield reps. I think Pereira is going to be healthy and on the bench mid-season. I don't know if Gonsolin really does much for them at this point. So my thought on the rumor is I don't get it, but I don't know if you know the sourcing there and have any thoughts.
I don't know the sourcing because I remember seeing that comment pop up, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
I'm doing some quick Googling, and this is the first time I'm hearing any of these names together.
Yeah, I would be very careful where you're reading your rumors.
Here we go, yeah. Proposed by Dodgers Nation's Noah Camara. So that is someone proposing an idea, and I would say from the Yankees' perspective, they're not doing that.
No, that's not happening. So I think we can confidently and safely move on.
Yeah, but we appreciate the question, of course, and it had me do some mid-podcast detective work, which is always hard, but there we go. Figured it out. Ryan asking if the Red Sox are going to trade Willie or Abreu to play Anthony, who is obviously better. Can't you? You're going to find room for Anthony soon anyway. I don't think the Red Sox should be trading talent off the roster like Abreu, thinning out their depth. They're going to find room for him and Anthony. I would say this is not a concern or something you should be worried about.
No, and I think that's spot on by you. I would not trade Abreu at all if I was a Red Sox. And like Anthony he's going to get plenty of playing time this season at the major league level. But you also got to remember this. I want to make sure I get this right. He's 20 years old. He's 20 years old, and he's also only had 35 games in AAA. And they're going to be very mindful not to put too much on his plate when he eventually ends up debuting. I don't necessarily know when that point will come for him. But that they don't want to put too much on his plate because we saw what ended up happening last year with Jackson Holiday, and he wasn't necessarily ready, and he got optioned back to AAA. So Roman Anthony is going to be a superstar. He's got an unbelievable swing. He is like a megastar waiting to happen. But I don't expect the Red Sox to be trading Abreu in order to make room for him or give him more playing time, at least not at this point.
Yeah, this will work itself out, and if there is a logjam that needs to be solved like this, MLB can always let them pretend somebody's injured so they can put him on the IL. Just kidding. Apparently, that's not happening with Yoshida anyway. So, one final question. Penguin fan asked, follow up to the Kirk stuff early. Do we think the Blue Jays are trying to build around Vlad or build a team that's competitive after Vlad is gone? I am firmly in the camp that they still think they're trying to build around Vlad, especially because of the confident comments last week. But I'll turn this over to you.
Yep, they're absolutely trying to build a competitive team around Vlad. They want to compete with Vlad, not just this year, but long term. You don't go out and try to extend a player and make him as significant of an offer as you do without actually like wanting a real chance of keeping him. So the Blue Jays want to keep Vlad. I think Vlad is definitely open to returning. We're just not at that point quite yet, but I'm still trying to figure out where the hell that optimism is coming from, because I just don't know where it's being traced back to at this point.
Like Billy Hamilton stepping in the box against the 100-mile-an-hour pitching machine, maybe the optimism is misplaced. We don't know, but this will be an optimism tracking podcast from here on out.
Yeah, that passes the smell test. We love that. Yeah, I had to throw that line in there, but that was good.
That passes my personal smell test too.
All roads lead back to Billy Hamilton on this podcast. That's all I can say.
Yep. 3 days before opening day, we are in deep discussions over someone who I don't think has played at the major league level for 3 years. He's on the 2023 White Sox. He got 2 plate appearances. So there you go. Learn something new every Monday at 3:30 Eastern with the Baseball Insiders, today at 4. We appreciate you joining us. We are going to be live again on Wednesday afternoon, as well as tomorrow with Eric Cole for the Prospect Show, 12 noon. Expect a couple of fun interviews this week as well, active players. So hand on chin. We'll see what's coming there. I'm taping something tomorrow, hopefully, that we'll have running on the channel. Sorry, before we sign off, anything on the Padres roster shuffle, Robert? I know we got to help Andrew out here, and Brandon Lockridge made the team, so good for him.
Yeah, I've got nothing new for you on the Padres at this point, Drew. Maybe that'll change, but as of this point, I got nothing.
I'm Ron Burgundy. Thank you, everyone, for the comments. Thank you for the super chat. Also, RG, we see you. Appreciate it, even though you popped in, giving me, again, a score update on a game that does not count in the standings. So demerit there, but you made up for it with your super chat. We love everybody. Join us in the Discord if you have not. We don't love everybody, but we love everybody here. Join us in the Discord if you have not. Rumor Mill tier or the All-Star tier. Getting that private Q&A Thursday afternoon. Prospect Show tomorrow. Baseball Insider season preview show on Wednesday. We will not be here on Friday. A lot of shuffling. Fansided has some movement this week. Robert and I are attending to some business, but we will see you refreshed afterwards. We'll see you on Wednesday, so please do join us here. Until then, Robert, I think we did a good job.
We did do a good job, and I appreciate you, Anna, for doing such a great job. Everyone in the comments, I appreciate you guys for doing a good job as well. Justin, I'll even include you today. You were leaving some good comments, so thank you for that. Mm-hmm. Sean Daly, our producer for the day, we appreciate you doing some fine work back there. And, well, let's do it again back on Wednesday. What do you think?
I think Wednesday's a great time for a podcast. I think everybody should join us. I think if you aren't here and you just stumbled on this on your search, on your YouTube feed, why don't you come back on Wednesday? Why don't you come back tomorrow to see Eric and I talk about the best prospects we're most excited to see make opening day rosters. A couple big names, like Christian Campbell mentioned in the comments, got the nod. That's a fun one, too. I like when it's an open competition in spring training, and then someone like Campbell struggles, hit like 150, and the Red Sox were like, yeah, it doesn't matter. We know this guy's awesome, so he's going to be our starting second baseman. Like, any questions? Spring training stats matter, but some people, they're not really fighting for a roster spot. Talent wins out. Campbell gets the job because he deserves it. So it's always fun when stuff like that happens. Join us tomorrow to talk prospects. Join Robert and I Wednesday for a season preview. Until then, we will catch everybody on the audio feed, on the YouTube channel, and in the Discord. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.